How many people do you have down, John?
Sir,
How many people do you have down?
we'll have about 17.
That may be
Okay.
the largest group on the beach this week.
You are the
Please
largest.
keep them out of the water.
Yes.
What happened to that guy?
They'll know later on, and there's a missing person right now.
Really?
He's what?
Yeah,
There's one
We
missing.
have another
There's
missing
one
person
missing.
right
One
now,
right over here.
over by my, by
Oh, down
Fountain
by
View.
yours. I saw-
Like missing
I saw
because he
Mercy
went in the
too.
water, or?
Friends can't find him. He went in the water, the friends can't find him.
Mm.
We don't know, so I don't wanna say a whole lot. He may have just gone into the room. We don't know.
Hello?
Right now, he's just missing.
Mhm. Hey, let me call you back a minute.
Get to leave?
No,
Darn.
I'm gonna stay here with you. I want somebody to get a picture of us holding hands.
No,
Kumbaya.
you. Lightning was strike.
That may ward off lightning. You can't ever tell.
Oh,
does it?
man, I tell you, those storms.
I even got where I could get along with George Gaynor.
How many years did that take? That's, you don't have much time with me.
It took us about 6 months of not accomplishing anything, and finally we quit arguing.
Old George.
Talked to him a while ago. He's doing pretty good. Doctor turned him loose today.
I didn't know he was,
He had triple bypass.
oh, did he? I didn't know that.
You know that
Yeah.
Gervin,
About 6 weeks ago.
you know
Darling.
that, Gervin
Oh.
had a stroke.
No, I did not know that.
Gervin had a stroke. He's lost eyesight. The stroke happened inside of his eye, which is
Good.
as
Yeah.
bad as it is. It's the best place for it to happen.
I called him about, I talked to Jerry about every 5 or 6 weeks. And,
Oh, that,
he,
okay.
he and I got to be pretty good buddies.
He's a good man.
He is a good man.
He's had some bad health issues, though.
Yeah.
He has, I tell you, that barnacle deal like got him.
Yeah, and you know what, it killed one of my friends,
Really?
my husband's, yeah.
It's dangerous. Folks, we'll call this meeting to order. August the 10th, 2016. Would you call the roll, please?
Yes,
This,
sir.
for the workshop.
Councilman Rickert,
Yes.
Councilman Chester,
Yes.
Councilman Solis,
Yes.
Councilwoman Strange.
Yes,
Mayor Thomas.
Yes, ma'am. The invocation today will be by Councilman Chester and the pledge to follow by Councilman Chester.
Bow your heads, please. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this glorious day, Lord. We thank you for the city we live in. We thank you for all of our freedoms, Lord. Just lead and guide and direct us in all we do, Lord. Just let our ideas flourish here, Lord, and just lead us how you would have us go, Lord. In precious name I pray. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Folks, what we're doing today is having a workshop on code enforcement and other building things, I would assume. It was asked for by Councilman Richard, and later on there'll be a workshop on some other issues with trying to get some cleaning up done around the beach area and other areas that Councilman Solis brought up. There's not a whole lot of rules for this, but we're gonna follow some anyway, so that we don't get in arguments and so we don't spend 2 or 3 days here arguing about the same thing. I think the easiest way to do this is, since John asked for this meeting, I'd like for you to start and throw out what you think, and then each person kind of give their little opinion of what we ought to do, and then we can start pushing items that we think are important. John?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I think, and I said in the previous meeting, that I think that the council has been remiss in not giving better direction to our planning and building and code enforcement departments, and that all of us have gone over their with our hands waving in the air saying, you need to do this, you need to do this, one at a time. And the idea of this meeting is for all of us to wave our hands in the air at the same time, and then find out why maybe we're mistaken for waving our hands in the air. So that's the purpose of this meeting. One initial idea that I've talked about for some time, and I'm glad that Mark and James are here, because they're the online guys that have to make this happen. You know, it's kind of like everybody hates the IRS, but Congress gives the IRS, passes these laws, and then the IRS has to implement them, whether they make any sense or not, or they're able to be implemented or not. So I don't want us to be in a situation where we do that to our guys. And so I'm glad everybody's here. One suggestion that I had all along is that I think that what I've seen in the years that I've been up here is that our officers get bogged down in very necessary paperwork. Not that it's a bureaucratic something, but if you're going to put a property notice on owner notice the property owner on notice that it is violating the code, that's not just something you sort of bump into him in the grocery store and say. So it has to have, you know, there is a process there. Most of that needs to be written rather than said. Amy can tell us about how all that works. My suggestion is that being in a sales capacity one way or the other most of my career, is to have support for the salespeople, so the salespeople could be on the street and not be bogged down inside the headquarters. Should be out there talking to the people, seeing the people, and have a support situation where they wouldn't have to be in the office more than they are out there selling, so to speak, or enforcing, or, you know, making the city better. So what my suggestion would be is that we consider, and I sure want to hear, and I've talked to all these guys about this, you know, one time or another, is that if one of our code officers is out there, rides by a situation, garbage cans left on Front Beach Road, it's now Wednesday, it's been there since the garbage picked up on probably Monday or Tuesday, thank you Lee J, and you know, this is not the first time it's happened at this address. What I would like to see is some form of communication from that code officer to someone who's sitting here 8 hours a day indoors and has some time to send a letter. Letter number 1 goes to this property owner at this address. That comes back to me at the home headquarters. By having that address, I can look up the parcel number, I can see who and where pays the taxes, and I can send the letter. Letter number 1 says, your garbage can has been out on Front Beach, you know, too long. And in a short text or email, the officer can give that person back at the home office 2 little snippets of information in 20 seconds, and it's in process. The person receiving it sends the letter to Mr. Riekert and saying, your garbage can's been out there, this is your first notice, thank you very much. Letter number 2 is, your grass is too high. Letter number 3, I mean, they're boilerplate letters that somebody needs to fill in the property parcel number, or whatever legally we need to do, I would guess parcel number, and then the name and the address that's on the tax records, because that's who the letter, I guess, should go to, because they're paying the tax and that's who owns the house, and have someone back here. My first, again, this is just throwing it out so we don't have a blank page, my first suggestion would be the receptionist situation seems to have some time available, that if they got that communication from one of our officers to send letter number 2 to this address, that she could look that up, find out that that's Mr. Riekert, this address, dear Mr. Riekert, it's his first notice, she would indicate that. Her program will say, in 30 days we're going to say, have you heard from Mr. Riekert? And if not, so what I'm trying to do is have, and I'm really asking you guys to develop a situation where you don't get caught up in all of that very necessary, very legal, very proper paperwork, and those letters don't have to be, and I'm sure you don't recreate them every time that you have, you know, paragraphs that work for every letter. But I would love to see somebody else do it, still with your officers and personnel overseeing it, you know, knowing that, but that the reminder in 30 days comes to this desk, and maybe there's a communication back saying, hey, Mark, did you hear from Mr. Riekert yet? You know, and then we send letter number 2. So I guess I'm trying to say, I would love for our sales department to be out there selling more and have a better backup situation here, probably and possibly with the personnel we already have. That would be the bestest. And the other thing that sticks in my craw is the continuous ignoring of our officers, our codes, our rules of some businesses. And you know, we can go down there and fine them $50, and then the officer has to go back, or they call Mario, and they just jerk the city around unmercifully. And I think that we ought to take an attitude. Now, the last thing the city wants to do is close down anybody's business. But if there is a scooter shop on Front Beach Road that totally ignores our sign ordinances, that has scooters in the right-of-way of the state highway, and has been told and has been told and has been told, I would like to know what we can do next, because they're not worried about the fine. I mean, you know, pay $50, pay $100 and put those scooters out there. They get that back from 2 scooter rentals. I mean, I would like to have a next step for those people who totally disregard the city of Panama City Beach and our efforts to make it better. That's me, sir.
Can I add something to that? Mel, I thought that Becky was doing the letters.
She does on occasion. That's a very good idea. It's not that formalized though, like what Councilman Riekert's talking about. That would be a step up or an improvement of what's going on right now. Right now, if Mark and James get behind and the letters are starting to drag on them progressing through things, they'll bring some stuff over and have her work on it. It's
They
not
are
as
behind.
what's
Yeah.
sir?
They are behind.
And that's why the process probably needs to be a little different and a little more formalized. That would help streamline it quite a bit. I would need to work with the city manager on how that process works, because they also have other duties, and making sure that the stuff keeps going.
Sure.
And when things do break down on the code enforcement end of it, how that gets handled when you're dealing with 2 different departments and having to involve him every time something isn't exactly going correctly. All that can be worked out though. But my thought was, and what you'll end up seeing, we'll probably talk about in the budget tomorrow, we have a part-time person in the building department, and the thought was maybe making that a full-time person, so that part-time would be code enforcement and part-time would still be building. But it's the same idea about trying to have someone who can take care of the paperwork and keep things going and keep it more organized, and talking to people when they walk in, and people who are returning the phone calls when they're not in, so that they're out on the street, and keeping them more organized and more efficient in what they're doing.
And reminders. I mean, like you send Mr. Riekert a letter, and 30 days later, this assistant person gets a notice on their computer that is, Mr. Riekert, has he paid or has he complied? And then we'll know he's had 30 days, that his letter said he would have 30 days, and then we go, you know, he doesn't not hear from us for 2-3 months because the guys got busy.
Exactly.
And
So
I,
we have a full-time receptionist and a part-time receptionist.
And I just need to talk with Mario about what their workload is and what excess they have. If there's an opportunity there for that or somewhere else, that sounds like a great idea.
But what I think initially there would be this much to do, and that would be writing those letters to your grass is too high, your garbage can stayed out, and having that letter in there. And then when it comes to that person, it's an address probably. And then they were trained to know how to look that parcel number up and see who pays the taxes. And then it's parcel number, name and address, dear Mr. Riekert, print out, and there might be add this in paragraph 4. And that whole process from look up to stick that thing in the envelope shouldn't take 5 minutes. I mean, I would think once it's set up, hopefully. I mean,
That is an improvement, yes.
What else, Josie?
Oh, well, I have my list of things like using the Surf Patrol they're up and down the beach already, and empower them. I guess are they already empowered, Drew or Mario, to write citations when they see?
Yeah.
So, but that would free up our guys so that they could be land-wise as opposed to on the beach. I mean, they're up and down the beach all day.
Right now,
well, the
focusing
weather,
on
right.
their focus, which is life safety issues. And it's up to y'all. If you want to direct them to do code, then we'd have to educate them in code, but that's up to y'all. It's not anything we've done in the past. It's mixing two different services.
I'm guessing if
what-
there's one code violation on the beach, there are 10 on inland.
I promise.
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
no, but I
So
mean,
it's
I'm just
not,
saying.
you're not asking for something that's gonna tie everybody
Just
up
a
all
second.
day at all.
You're gonna get plenty of time.
That would be a yes and no though on the beach as far as when we talk about violations. It depends what type of code violations you're talking about, but if we're talking about glass bottles,
Right.
dogs on the
Right.
beach, holes on the beach,
Right.
litter on the beach,
right.
that's every 50 feet.
Yeah.
You know, so we've got a lot of that, and hopefully we're gonna get to addressing that with some of the things with, if we are looking at bringing extra officers into the police officer with the budget tomorrow, because that's gonna be my concern. If we're bringing extra people in, are we gonna be able to start taking care of some of the things we need to take care of the beach side with enforcement and have a combined effort between Drew's shop of what they can do as well as code enforcement to be able to help with those areas, as well as tapping into the TDC. There is an avenue for us to tap into the TDC when it comes to code enforcement and being able to bring in some people on some four-wheelers that are paid part-time to be able to do that. We just need to give them the best type of
How
circumstances
could you
to
do
work
that? The
under that.
TDC's not allowed to do.
When they
law
did the leave
enforcement.
no trace behind, when they set up the leave no trace, that came with a reimbursement from TDC, did it not, for staff?
Right,
So,
but can they write citations though?
No.
So that's, that's what we're trying to do is stop it.
Let's,
so they
For,
can't,
for glass, for holes in the ground, they can write citations for those type things, yes or no?
This one officer's 10 years.
But Surf Patrol is not.
yeah, and see, but what did we have for the leave no trace? That was just people just dealing specifically with leave no trace?
Leave no trace was auxiliary police, which still has the ability to write a citation.
Okay.
Their focus was to inform the people, to
On the
be
leave no trace.
ambassadors, but they could, at any point in time,
he called
go onto a different clock and say, I'm acting as a police officer and issue a citation.
Right, so,
But it is a different activity from what the leave no trace was.
so, but we could try and come up with a combination of a job description that would, and once again, it's funds that we're not tapping into that are there. The TDC has up to, I believe, $600,000 that they have in their pot, that they help out with. I'm going from the discussion I had with Dan at a meeting we had, and so there's an avenue for some additional funds there for enforcement on the beach and some of the things we're talking about, the pet peeve, the holes, the other, because in talking to James, I know James does quite a bit out on the beach trying to keep up with certain things. Sitting up there off the top of the dune with binoculars looking and catching people not picking up their poop in the dog park area, things of that nature. And that's tough to be on the beach and on the land side trying to do enforcement on both sides. We either need another person in there to help with that on the beach side, or we need to take advantage of some of those things that we have out there. I agree with John completely on, and I had written it down as one of the things. One of our problems, like John was saying though, is we have frequent violators and chronic violators that continuously would rather pay thousands of dollars in fines, but keep their area looking bad. I mean, we just got another picture in this week of an area that had just been cited just a couple of weeks ago, and it was horrendous again, with all the trash they put out there and everything. And they seem to not care about paying a $200, $250 fine. So I would ask that we look at it. That's one of the questions. What do we have that is progressive regarding these people to where at some point it does get beyond either the amount of money gets so high that it catches their attention, or there's a more severe fine to it? Because I think that's what all of our direction has been so far this year. We've come in and concentrated and said, we do want to make sure that we give the best look of the beach all up and down the beach, on the sand side and on Front Beach Road. And if we've got those people that are frequent violators, we've got to catch their attention, because obviously the fine isn't doing it. And I've seen some of the things, and I've talked to our code enforcement, and they're doing a lot of stuff out there, but it amazes me at some of these people that they don't care.
And there's only 2 code enforcement officers.
Yeah.
And another one of my pet peeves is, what is the status on the unfinished construction site? There's one down by your place, and then the one on Middle Beach Road.
Plaza, behind the plaza back there.
Yeah. Do we know anything about those?
Let's stick to where we were headed
Oh,
before.
okay.
Let's each say what we want this meeting to accomplish.
Okay.
Some bullet points you got, and then we'll get to them on specifics, or we're gonna be here all day.
All right, let me finish mine.
Yeah,
Okay.
finish.
In the U-turn
You got
Sunburn
it.
Saloon.
Good. I didn't
I'm
forget
all right.
you.
I'm good.
Okay. So derelict buildings, you
Yeah.
say, okay.
The construction sites, the existing construction sites, I think they need to be fenced and screened. So that, you know, especially the ones that are not active. Like
And
Emerald
those you
Beach.
mentioned are, though.
Well, yeah, but
Well, are they? You know?
No, I don't disagree.
Yeah, but I mean, there are some that are, you see the chain link fences out there on Front Beach Road, and it's just trash blowing around in there, and,
it's worse than if they left it open.
exactly. Right, okay.
Hector, finish yours?
Well, I want to piggyback on hers as far as there's a difference between just having fenced in, but when they look ratty, the way they, I mean, fence is all bending in and everything else. The area behind the fence, weeds up to here. You know, we've got those properties right on Front Beach Road that that need to be addressed. What do we consider abandoned properties that have been sitting for? Is it after 10 years? It's just been sitting there with nothing. One of the ones that stands out right off the bat is the Rock.
U-turn Sunburn Saloon.
Yeah, the Rock. You know, it's just been sitting there. It's an abandoned property. What can we do to make sure that area gets cleaned up a little bit? It gathers. We've had homeless people go through there that have gone in there, and people are actually running off homeless outside that have gotten into that rock and stuff. And so we've got to be careful when we have vacant
Imagine
buildings.
there's water on top right now with mosquitoes growing in.
Ooh, yeah.
During a bad
I'm sure
time.
there is.
It's a great landmark, though. You go past the rock,
Go past.
3 miles, and
Anything else?
On the side of what John was talking about as far as a system, it sounds like if the team just gets together and starts discussing a better system on how to go ahead and establish the reports and stuff, because all of it is, it's pretty simple as far as the paperwork side goes. If we don't have our guys with the actual mobile equipment they need, the iPads or whatever, to be able to go ahead and submit that report to the administrative assistant, I mean, that should all be electronic. They should be able to go right in there, plug it in, send it over. The form letters should be in place, like John said, spit those out. The way to have the quality control on that is ensure that those letters that are spit out by the end of the day are in the code enforcement officer's boxes. So when they come in, they review them to make sure they were done properly. They sign them, they send them out. That way you've got your Q&A on what was done there. And then we need to make sure that we've got a good tickler system in place, if we don't already have a good tickler system in place when we're talking about the follow-up, like John was talking about. The map that you guys have started, that's already an excellent point, because it reminds everybody. I would say that administrative assistant also should be responsible when that letter is put in place, put in the box, the computer system, to make sure that it's entered in the computer system so that it's on there. And like I said, we should have automatic alerts that will go ahead and pop out to that administrative assistant at the 10-day or 15-day, whatever the mark is, to verify with code enforcement to ensure that either it was corrected or the follow-up needs to be done on the second letter, whatever follow-up action is necessary on it. You know, and maybe there's already some programs in place that would help our people that aren't too expensive. But the more we can streamline and get that going, the better off. But I do think we need to get the people in place to make this happen. And we need to look at every resource, which, like I said, I think there's a resource with TDC we're not tapping right now to help with some of the code enforcement on the beach. And I believe one of the reasons the last didn't work was the fact that the people that were coming out, you're in the hot sun 8 hours on a four-wheeler. That's some tough work. It's not easy just to be going, and if you're wearing a helmet and a vest and stuff, that's pretty brutal out there. So at a minimum, we need to retrofit some four-wheelers with some canopy tops, to where when they are going down the beach, they're in shade, to where they're not having to go in the sun all day long. I see the guys on the four-wheelers when they're going by, and it's hot out there. So we ought to be retrofitting whatever we have with canopies to make sure these guys have some shade on top of them. And ladies, that's it for now.
Bill? You remember what you were going to
I
talk about?
done forgot all about it now. No, bottom line, if code enforcement needs some help, let's get them some help, one way or another. Number two, personally, I think they need to be on the asphalt. They do not need to be on the beach all the time. There's a lot of things in the subdivisions all around that need to be taken care of. Also, when I say we, the city, we have a program in place now. We can go on the map and I can see where James has been. I can see the update. I can see what's going on with it. I can see the fine, or if they paid a fine, or the violation. Same thing with Mark. You can go in there and see when a letter was sent out. I mean, we can all go online and see it. It has the address, everything. They just need some help inputting the information in. So the program's there. The program is there. We can all go to it. If we get a phone call, hey, we can go online, go on the program, and boom, we know what's going on with it. So as far as sending out letters and things, yes, that needs to be done. Not just our large buildings. We have a building there in Colony Club, the guard shack, or whatever you want to call it, you know. Just little things like that. If we're going to clean up, let's do it. Let's get on board and go for it. Beach and surf out there going up and down the beach. We got somebody missing. There's people in the water. You know, do we want them to save lives, or do we want them to get that beer bottle out of that guy's hand? You know, we need to weigh it. You know, if we need to get another code enforcement to do strictly on the beach, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, if we're going to clean it up, let's do it. But there's lives that need to be saved with our beach and surf. We need to weigh that out. I mean, we don't need to be stepping out like that. And, you know, somebody's talking to somebody about you know, digging a hole in the ground while it's red flag and somebody's out there drowning. Really? I mean, do we really want that? So we need to get our priorities up as far as who needs to hand the tickets out, who needs to be watching for swimmers, who needs to be writing a ticket for a dog on the beach, or just notifying that, hey, you can't have that dog on the beach, you need to go. And as far as everyone else, I'm in agreement with everyone else. So
Mr.
that's
Mayor,
mine.
I think we need to, at some point today or soon thereafter, have the council prioritize what it is we think should come first, because Phil just mentioned, you know, holes in the beach versus scooters in the right of way. Which one do we want somebody to go see about first? I think that's the direction I was hoping, and we haven't heard from these guys yet either, you know, so.
And also, we can have a schedule. I mean, we're different wards, 1, 2, 3, and 4. You know, James could start at Ward 1 on Monday. I'm just throwing it out there. That way, we would know if we get a phone call from Ward 3 or Ward 2 or whatever. Hey, they'll be out there on Wednesday or something. You know, have a set schedule. And I know sometimes we do have to deviate from the schedule, but people will know. You know.
I'm under the impression, Your Honor, Mr. Mayor, that the TDC cannot sponsor law enforcement events, that they can't use their money for law enforcement.
They can use their money for security on events that they sponsor.
Okay.
But on that event, and what Councilman Solis is talking about, there is, the last legislature changed it where there's 10% of certain pennies that can be used for certain things. But there's only 2 pennies that are eligible for that 10%, because some of the others are set aside for different things already. And law enforcement and health and safety are those. But it may be where we can get some of it funneled in to take care of some things, but designed for code enforcement, it is not. Unless I miss something in the thing. But if we can, that's fine. I mean, we're all hunting money. If we hunt too much money, we'll be getting in trouble because we'll be charging too much money. So I worry about that. My little part of this, thank you for suggesting this. I think it got everybody on the same page. I rode around with Mel yesterday afternoon. I felt like the fair way to do this was to tell him what I was mad about. And he could explain some of the reasons why some things were happening or not happening. And I've been through this with Mario, because when I was elected, I was mad at all of them. I mean, I wanted them all to get out of here because I didn't think they had been doing their job for the last few years. Because I have complained about the same issues for several years, and they're still sitting there. But in the past, some things have been told to leave alone. And that's the first thing that I think we need to start to clean up the beach, is the five of us not tell people to leave things alone. If it's a law, and it's a bad law, and you get a citation, you bring that to me at a council meeting, and if it's a bad law, we'll vote to do away with it. But if it's a good law, follow it. Rather than, in some cases in the past, our department heads have been told to stand down, not enforce some things, don't want to do some things, and we don't want to. I think if we're serious about cleaning up, we've got to let them do their job, and give them the materials and the wherewithal to do it, like y'all are talking about. But the main thing is we need to get out of the way. Our job is not to do code enforcement. Our job is to pass laws, and theirs is to do it, and we should get out of your way and let you do it. With that, I don't think with a city that doesn't have an ad valorem tax will ever be able to do this as fast as I want it to be done without everybody pitching in. I rode mail by some places that I know have had citations that are 10 or 15 years old. They will go back and do it again, and they don't care. And this is homes that it's the same thing over and over again. We don't have any. There's a home on my street that tonight will have 9 cars in the lot. They've got a 2-lot parking lot, and they'll all be parked out in the grass. I mean, it's just, we allow with our rules people to look bad. And I stopped next door to a couple of houses, yards manicured, perfect, everything done. And when they look down the road, and there's been 3 or 4 councilmen over in my neighborhood, and in y'all's neighborhoods the same way, you've had people in office, and they look down and see there's the city leader over there, and he's allowing this to go on. I think it makes us all look horrible when we don't have rules that clean up some of that stuff.
My neighbors hate me because I'm the yard Nazi.
You know, it's hard. But in the past, you may have been able to get something done about it. I haven't been. The same yards that were a problem 8 or 10 years ago in my neighborhood are still a problem. And when people look down the road at the end of this 4 years, they're not going to laugh at me. It is not going to happen. They're going to get clean. And it'll make all of our properties worth more. Spring break wasn't the only problem we've got in this city. And when we clean up the way we look and get some pride in our neighborhoods, we'll all be better off for it. And those buildings you're talking about, why in the world those concrete structures and all that stuff is still there, I have no idea. I think CRA money can help tear them down. Nowadays, I know why the city didn't do it for years. It's the same reason the county didn't. If a bank got in there, you lost your money if the bank foreclosed on it. But nowadays, when you can put them on the tax rolls, put your liens on there, those things aren't a problem anymore. You can recover your money.
Eventually.
Yeah. But I mean, it'll happen.
It's a cash flow deal.
It is. Well, I mean, it is a cash flow deal when you look so bad that people won't come down here too. And if we're gonna change our clientele and we're gonna go after different markets, we've got to look like we're prepared to do something with it. And that's what I want us to do. I'm so glad that everybody's on the same page with this. I think we have to have the help of the police department. I don't see any reason that any code enforcement person should be on the beach at all. That, I don't know why when something's going on the beach, they don't have any business going down there stopping somebody from a dog or a beer can, because first thing, if Turbo walked up to me and told me that, I'd tell him go to hell. They're drinking down there, and we're sending them down to do that. That's dangerous for them. You know, we're sending them in a situation where it needs to be a policeman. I think when you're writing up a code violation for a yard or something, that's different. But when you put them in that situation with somebody drinking or doing something wrong, you're putting them in a bad shape, and I don't think that's fair of us to do that. That's a police matter. Litter, things like that are police matters to me, and I would like to see us write it where it is a police matter. The dogs, we don't have dog control. We can go write them a ticket and call the county to come do it, but we don't do that. And everybody in the world sees how much problems you get when you mess with people's animals. And putting y'all in there, you're going to get cussed out, you're going to get chewed out. It ought to be an officer that does that sort of stuff to me. And during, you may not have time during the 4th of July, but during the spring and fall and winter, when you do have time, pretty soon when word gets out that we've got rules and we're following them, I think it won't be a problem anymore, I believe. But if anybody, and these guys, every one of them have said the same thing, somewhere there has to be penalties. Repeat offenders, we make it too easy for them. We've got an occupational license. There should be something that works up where you've got some skin in the game to snub your nose at these people. And it's continuous. And there's not that many of them, but they keep doing the same thing and making us all look bad. And I think we can fix that. Do you have anything that you've seen the last couple of days that you think you can speed stuff up? Is there things that you need from us, rule-wise, to give you teeth to do things? Because if you've got to write a 30-day ticket and then you can sign them this for 30 days and this, somewhere along the line we need to figure out how to speed up what we're doing. And I understand everybody's rights, but I understand that we need to be in a hurry. We've got a problem and we need to fix it. So if you could ask things, if you need them, you've had time to think about it a little bit, if there's something we can do to help you in your process. And I'm saying you because you're the boss.
May I,
mean,
Mr. Mayor, may I throw something in before Mel
Sure,
answers that? Because I
sure.
think this might be relevant, we're looking at the increased cost. Sit down, Mel, rest yourself there, please. We're looking at, I'll try to be brief, but we're looking at increased cost. And one thing that I would like to put into this measure is our working hard to be sure everyone is paying their 1%. Landlords, people renting their own apartments. I have a family in town, and as a tourist, went and rented something that's not on Front Beach Road, that's not collecting our 1%. And so I'm wondering, in the past, I know that these guys have helped, your department in going and knocking on some doors of people that we know are renting, vacation rental by owner and not collecting all the appropriate taxes and fees, 12.5%, penalizing the people who are doing the right thing. That's another thing to me that needs to fit into this. What Hector's saying, who does that? Does this department do that? Is that worthwhile? And I think it is, because it's being fair to Holiday Inn, who's collecting that tax, and somebody else who isn't has a 12.5% pricing advantage over Holiday Inn for doing the right thing. So, excuse me for interrupting, but I think that should be part of this. Like in the past, I know you fellows have knocked on some doors or had been involved in this, that it takes your time. And I wonder if that's something, I think that's important. I keep talking about this and have for a long time, and everybody, and we've had some success with it, your department has. And I just wonder if we say we're going to continue this, maybe increase it. Would there, how does this fit into two guys with what looks to be like expanding responsibilities?
Can I piggyback on that?
Sure.
It's like we're on the same page today. Right before the meeting, Mel and I were just talking about that. We were just talking about the fact that, once again, we have the two ladies at the reception desk. When they're not cranking out the memos, or whether we're going to get an additional person, back in Mel's department. One of the things I just discovered recently is Airbnb, which is extremely popular now. In some areas, Airbnb has taken over VRBO. Airbnb, when you submit through their system, they collect the tax for you. Well, the only tax they collect is state tax. And I can tell you, one of the reasons we chose not to be on Airbnb was the fact that the complication of collecting the tax to pay it. So I would say a first step is somebody at a computer pulling up the Panama City Beach properties on Airbnb specifically, cross-reference to our to our records of properties that are paying. That's one of the first places we can start. If they just went through 10 properties a day on the computer, from there you go to VRBO and you cross-reference the property on VRBO against where we're collecting taxes.
And that's what you've been doing, right, Mel? Pretty much.
Not to the extent that's significant like what we're talking about. It would be having somebody that's got the time to sit there and do that better. We have on occasion, but it's not a systematic, reoccurring
I
process.
think they're doing it at the county, at the clerk's office, but we're not getting the benefit of what they're doing.
Well,
which
and we
we'd
have
like to
this
work
new
at.
software, is why I bring this up again, because we
right.
finally got that speaks to the county. And
That's right.
I don't know what our situation is with the state, because that's always been coming and going and in question about, can the state release that information to us, who's paying sales
They
tax?
can, they can.
They can.
They can.
So
They can
we've
now.
got the ammunition now, and we didn't have it before because our computers were.
You're also going to have people that don't even claim to the county, though. That's what I'm saying. There's
Yes.
people that aren't claiming there, so the
Yeah. We
won't
cross-reference
catch
isn't
that,
going
right.
to work. I can tell you, I've been running the numbers based on the TDC numbers that they have of what they're collecting from versus the amount of condos that we have within the city and the beach. I'm pretty certain we have 10 to 20% people that are under the radar that aren't there. I think it's a significant amount of a number that if we devote 1 or 2 hours a day of a personnel that's at a desk, that's sitting there by a computer and there's nothing going on.
That's what Bill
That's,
did.
you spend that 1 to 2 hours looking on that computer, cross-referencing. The only thing I think that's different is instead of, we've sent out the letters asking people on their own to do the right thing.
Right.
And that's been done, at your
Right.
request last year, and it brought additional people in. I think we should do that also, again, do the letter again, but do the carrot and stick approach where you let them know it's the law to do it and let them know what the penalties are. Right after that point, then we start investigating and looking. And now when we catch people, if you catch people that are doing it, they've got websites where they're renting properties, we actually hit them with the fine. If the fine's a $250 fine, we fine them and we get them in compliance. Instead of just letting them do it on their own. If they've chosen to pass twice, when we've given them the opportunity, at some point we need to go ahead and enforce.
But if
that rule.
if they get a phone call after getting 2 letters and saying, oh, I didn't get that letter, if they get a phone call,
Well, they know the law. Everybody knows if you've got a property and you rent it, and because what can be in that letter also is that there's federal implications if they're not paying their taxes. I guarantee if they're not paying us their taxes, they're not claiming it on their federal income tax. But they need to do the right thing. If they're supposed to be paying their taxes, they should be paying them. So it's definitely there. On helping them on another subject, and I forgot about this one. I know one of the problems that code enforcement has, and me talking with them and seeing some of the pictures they had, is the consistency of what we are going to regulate. We have a land development code that specifically says this is what you should and shouldn't have. Based on the way the land development code is written, I mean, it doesn't even allow for an ice machine to be in front of a business. So what do we enforce and what don't we enforce? I think part of that consistency is some of the questions that they need answers to from us. Do we have some things that are a little bit too strict? I know personally, if somebody's got an ice machine and an ATM in front and our land development code doesn't allow that, I don't think that's a bad thing, Now, if you've got 4 ice machines out there, plus all the other stuff, it's a little bit different. So I think we're going to have to come up with some things and make sure our land development code is strong when they can request permits, that it's done the right way. But I know it's going to be hard for them to clean up Front Beach Road when, if we go all out and say whatever that land development code goes, and that means wiping everything out. I think there's some things that might be a little bit unreasonable as far as my opinion goes. Because like I said, an ice machine, an ATM, a soda machine, something, at some point we should allow certain things outside the property. Right now our land development code says no. So if we tell them go all out, do what the land development code says, and then we start getting these complaints, we should go ahead and take care of that before and decide what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, so that we give them a good game plan and it's not a ticket, to fail later. And in regards just to that 10% off the TDC, I just wanted to come back to that. The health and safety is what I was going after. When we talk about glass on the beach, holes on the beach, feces on the beach, to me that is a health and safety issue, and that's how I tied into the TDC to get the funding to tie in to help with that enforcement of those things. So.
Mel?
Thank you. Back to your question about that, I think maybe myself and the city manager and the attorney look at and see if there's any timelines legally that we could be more aggressive on, that we're still legally defensible on, and maybe we're as aggressive as we can be. But taking another look at that, having some additional personnel, whether it's using the existing employees we have or taking a part-time person to full-time, would help out on the administrative side of it. And then off the top of my head, doing things like this, putting a spotlight on it and having hearing all the comments from the public and from you all about things that are your priorities, and seeing that there's a lot of commonality into it, all that, and putting a spotlight on it, I think helps out quite a bit as well, because it gives everybody a real clear purpose, direction. They're all hearing it. We're all in the same room, and it makes it a lot easier instead of hearing a lot of background noise and trying to figure out what's important and what isn't. Off the top of my head, we do those three things. We're pretty
There
good.
need to be consequences
Mm-hmm.
for repeat.
Do the fines need to be?
I don't know.
Bigger,
That's what
you know,
there are certain things I don't know that you can do.
Yeah.
I don't know that licensing is one of the things, or with fines, if there's caps during the state, or if multiple things add up. There are different legal parts with that. I know that I wish we could get some answers to, because what we're doing is not working.
And some of the fines start out seemingly kind of low, but if we can be more aggressive in how they keep getting repeated and hit, it can get real
Nobody wants to
expensive quicker.
fine anybody. We want it fixed.
I know.
And if they get a
their
fine
attention, yeah.
and don't fix it, and it goes way up, that's fair to me. I'd rather the first one not be aggressive. We're not trying to collect fines. We're trying to fix the problem.
Right.
And if we can, but if they're not going to help fix the problem, then I think it ought to be severe. Nobody wants to collect money if we're not getting it fixed.
Mm-hmm.
If we leave it at $20 a time like they were talking, they're just going to keep doing it.
That property at the beach club, this is a question for council, or maybe a statement, that we were fining them $500 a day or a week. Beach club, when they were not paying back the lien that we had for taking down that abandoned property.
They would say better than I.
Say again?
Every 7 days, sir.
500 every 7 days?
And sometimes we tried 30, and that wasn't working, then we increased. Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry, we were at 30 days at 500, and that wasn't getting the job done. And so we decided, after talking to Amy, we could increase our frequency of the fines. And so we could go. You could get a fine every day, if we wanted to, but we went every 7 days.
But my point was simply that when that matter was settled, the property was either sold or they paid their tax and they paid that as well. We just sort of, and maybe it's good business, forgot those fines.
We didn't forget them. They're still in the public record. They're still a lien on the property.
They're still on the public record.
We couldn't
but-
collect them on the tax roll.
But
because
we
they're
are
part
not,
of our nuisance
are we,
abatement.
yes or no, actively pursuing those?
We're not. There's a bank
That's
in
what I'm
front of
saying.
us.
That's one of those deals.
Now, I know there's more to that than I'm saying here, and I apologize for putting that out cold turkey, but I'm saying if we are going to levy fines, if we are left to have no other alternative but to levy a fine, I think we darn well ought to collect it. I mean, that's,
Well, I think when those fines, and I wasn't on this council when that happened, but the laws are different now. And you can attach to the tax roll now that you couldn't at the time, I believe.
no, you could.
You may be able to under the law. Your system doesn't allow for that. The assessment program you have is limited to the CRA and only for nuisance abatement cost. It does not include the code enforcement civil citation penalties.
I think the county's does.
I think it does too.
And
but
I
the
would like
cities
for
does
us
not.
to get to where we mirror that very soon so that we can clean up out of the CRA problems also.
Okay.
And not put the city's finances. I thought that had already been done.
Because what we did
We
with,
have a program, it's just limited to the CRA and it's limited to nuisance abatement
I didn't know they'd
activities.
done that. I wonder why they'd want to limit it.
what we did with the owner
It
of
should
that,
go everywhere.
what we did with the owner of that property was take down a nuisance for it.
Yes.
We took down a nuisance and loaned him that money for that period of time, interest-free.
So,
And I just have a problem with us. If we're gonna give money away, let's give it to these nice people out here who came to the meeting. Yep, here's
Yeah.
something. And I know it's more legally complicated than that, so I apologize for bringing that up. But back to this, I don't wanna ask, James and Mark to go out there and give somebody a ticket if everybody knows that it's gonna be ignored or not enforced, or, that's just.
some of these concrete structures may not be in the CRA.
They are not.
And that's why I would like
Right.
for her to, that they can do it to where it works anywhere in the city. And I'm sorry I didn't know that it wasn't, but are y'all, I know we can't vote on anything here today, but in a workshop, don't y'all think that it's a better way to protect the city's money?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
And it's time, and Mario and I have talked about this frequently over the years, and it's time for those structures to be addressed.
Yes.
The U-Turn Sunburn Saloon thing is a whole different deal though, because I'm under the impression they have the water on, they have the power on, they're doing all the things that says that is still a viable building. So it's a very different situation than what Mr. Robbins faces across the street from his property with those concrete structures. That's my understanding of that. But maybe there's a situation where some fine, personable statesman like our new mayor goes over there and says, this might be legal, but it ain't right. And just see if we can, as neighbors, say, we'll let you hold that footprint if that's what you're worried about, the future structure. If that's
That
what
has
you
been offered before, I believe.
I couldn't speak to that.
It's my understanding that the reason they want to keep that building there is that holds the footprint in case when they come in with another building or someone comes in, that footprint is held. Is there some way we could assure them that would be true for them or a future buyer if they would get rid of that eyesore?
I was told by the last administration up here that, because I talked to them about that, I said, is there not some way that the county and y'all, the city, cannot go to them and write letters that we'll stand behind them, that is and I was told they went to them and they turned them down. Now, whether that's the case or not, I don't know.
And that would
Would
have
that
had to be.
would
Mel acts like he knows something.
And that
about
would have
this.
had to been before I got here and Mrs. Strange, so that's been at least 6 years ago. So maybe it's time we consider going back, because that hasn't happened since I've been here.
I remember all that discussion, but I think where it comes down to the problem is that they don't trust the DEP. And that's beyond our control.
I was just gonna DEP.
Yeah.
And they don't know what
The
they're gonna
DEP's
do.
not gonna let them do it.
And that's the security that they can't get to make them feel comfortable
So they're
about.
just gonna leave it there?
Well,
there's-
I mean.
Once
the-
you
the-
improve a piece of property, you have to keep it improved.
Yeah.
And we have been remiss to keep that improved. And that's something you need to get at.
But it sounds like legally they have, doesn't it?
You know what I
Amy?
mean? I mean, it's,
Yes.
like Josie and then we're talking about, stuff grows in and out of the fences rot down, the building holds water. If we're gonna keep it there, let's paint it, grass it, cut it, keep it clean. And see if that's all we can do.
Paint it like
Okay.
a nice looking rock.
Or
Well-
like a
Well-
volcano. We already got one of those.
There you go.
Well,
Let's talk about paint,
But-
you can paint it any color.
pursue
Yeah.
both avenues, I think would be the direction from up here, I believe.
All right, we'll do it.
Mayor, is it possible to maybe hear from code enforcement, from the
Yeah,
officers
let's-
themselves,
yes,
to see
please.
what they need help with? Or
If you want to. I
mean,
don't
I'd
care.
like to
I
hear their
mean,
perspective.
you can
just
go
to-
in my kitchen and ask them what they think of me, and you're not gonna get much answer. Mel's the boss, and I thought that's who we ought to be.
Okay.
But I mean, ask anybody anything you want.
I'd just like to know if they have anything they'd like to add of where they've ran into problems, how we can assist, you know.
And some of the
I
things
think-
that- some of the
I
things
like
we've
hearing from
said
the guy
up
that's
here-
got it, that actually does the work, because
Well,
They're
you
the
said
ones that
you had
know
already
best.
talked to him, so I
Well,
figured
I
that.
did, but
Actually, I
address
think
the conflict.
everything y'all discussed is right on key with what I think needs to be done as well. I really have nothing to really add to it. I mean, y'all kind of fit everything that I had that I thought were problems, and I think what y'all have come up with is excellent plan. And I
Can
think
you
we
and
move-
Mark and Mel come up with a system that you can be standing in front of the address where there's a garbage can, pour it all over the place, that you can go like that back here to the home office and?
Sure can.
Okay.
We've also been, like Mel said, we've been utilizing Becky with some of the overgrown properties, especially now with all the rain. It's kind of it gets a little out of control. So we have been utilizing her with some of the letters that are going out, and we can also, utilize her as well for the trash cans. Also, another thing is the citations that we write. Going back to that, we did write a particular company on the beach about 2 years ago. Several $1,000s in fines for illegal signage. They went to refinance the property, and they couldn't refinance the property because there was a lien on the property, so they ended up having to pay it. It works, but you're right. I think something maybe a little more aggressive would probably be a little better too. So I'll have that. Unless you have any questions for me.
What would it be more aggressive than finding them? I mean, we can't close
Well,
the business.
a lot of
so-
times they don't care.
Yeah, higher,
Higher.
yeah.
Yeah.
There are no consequences if they don't pay,
I
I
would, the guy,
know, it's like, what?
The
until they
gentleman told
sell
me-
the property or
Yeah.
try to refinance it.
the gentleman told me he made more money off the sign being on the building than what the citations were worth.
Right. Did
That's
that,
sad, that's just not right.
that property at the Beach Club, Mel, did that sell, or was it just the
Tax bill being paid.
that's still being paid?
Yeah, it has the same owner.
Okay, so it hasn't sold.
But
Not
it-
that I'm
but-
aware of.
But the tax bill was being paid. And that's
And-
the thing, if we get it moved on the tax bill, it won't be continuous.
Right.
Do those fines show up as a lien or as any, does it show up if I'm buying that property? It will show up.
Oh, yeah, several
Okay.
of them.
It shows up on the tax bill.
So why wouldn't, if he paid his taxes, why wouldn't he want that paid as well, so he'd have this clean title when he sells it?
He will have to.
Yeah. He will
When he
eventually.
pays his taxes, they will not be shown clear until that's paid.
That's correct.
Unless the buyer pays the lien for them.
There's so
Somebody-
many
it
thousands of
doesn't-
We
dollars.
don't care who pays
Yeah.
it, yeah, yeah.
It's not on a lien anymore.
For
on the-
Beach Club it is. He
I
still has
know,
plenty
but
of
what I'm
liens.
saying is the way that it's being done, that I'm talking about let's do it is, it's more secure when you put it on the tax bill.
Yes.
They're gonna pay that.
That's how we got our money back for knocking down the buildings. Right, Mario?
That's right. Just a second, let us finish first.
It was just pertaining to that.
Anybody,
I think it's time to, and I know Mario's got a lot of time and grade in on these projects, but I think that we have, and I've been a proponent of, let's don't pull this property out from under somebody who paid their taxes and stuck through all the bad times. But I think our friends with the concrete structures have had
Ample time.
long enough. I mean, it's time to declare on that, and I would like to see us go, I don't think we need to change the code. If there's some way to go to DEP or some way to do something so we can go to our friends who own the rock and say, we're trying to clean up the look of the beach, and that will benefit.
those aren't the only three places
Right,
that
for
have
sure.
a problem. I went by yesterday with Mel. Alvin's Island's warehouse is falling down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally falling apart back there. The only thing holding it up is the junk stacked around the outside. And I mean, that doesn't look bad on them because nobody rides by there and looks. It looks bad on us.
Well, it looks bad for the people in open sands, they
Right.
have to look at it.
Yeah.
But we look like we're not, and every neighborhood has some of those.
Right.
Every neighborhood. And I contend that if we'll get in the neighborhoods and clean up first, there'll be some pride in the city that'll make us clean up the rest of it. We've got winter time here where we've got time to do some things. We've got, the police are gonna have time to help us identify some things. And another thing about identifying, I don't know how many people know, but Gulf Power is, to me, one of the, not Gulf Power, the hanging utilities on Panama City Beach are horrible. And they're that way all over Bay County. And each one of them will tell you they have no control on those. I've dealt with this for 10 years. I started out trying to get something done about it. And each one of them will tell you what they can't do because the other person can't do anything. I've got a meeting set up at the restaurant Friday where I'm buying the other mayor's lunch to see if we can all get together and try to do something to aesthetically help the whole county. Because if you got to drive through it to come in, we all look bad. And y'all can drive through any of your neighborhoods and you see where there's 4 or 5 cables hanging off poles and wrapped up. It's horrible. And I've asked Mel, and I think I talked to Ms. Myers about it, looking, and a lot of these things we're talking about aren't rocket science, and we don't have to spend a lot of time figuring out what we're doing. Look at a clean city and see what they're doing. See what the rules are, how they enforce rules, and sooner or later we won't have to come up with any new things. It's already there somewhere. And but the hanging utilities are one of the worst things we've got out here.
But they're horrible.
They are terrible, and why we don't.
Underground facilities during a storm would really help. I mean, it would protect so much of our power or whatever.
And as that comes along, but all the extra they've got on there, the extra weight, the extra trash they've got up there, creates an awful lot of problems. And time for them healing. And that's something I want us to get real aggressive on. And
CRA certainly does that too.
yeah, but we ought
and
to.
Mr.
If you
Robbins can
take
speak
in,
on that.
but you come in, you change cables.
Oh, and they leave the line.
I've
up
only
there.
changed cable one time, but the phone company changed to a different kind of line, so they come put another. They didn't take their old one down. The cable company came up with fiber optics, so they put a new one to your house, and they don't take that line down. Pretty soon you've got 5 or 6 lines going to your house, and 3 or 4 out there by the pole rolled up. And I mean, I didn't do that. I don't want it hanging there, and we've got to get that. But where I was headed, the poles. Most people don't know, back years ago, Gulf Power had 2 men by contract out here on the beach every night. 24 hours a day, the city contract said they would have 2 people out here. And that stopped about 15 years ago, 14, 15 years ago. But those men rode the roads every night. They wasn't sitting at a place. They rode the roads, and they changed lights every night. In Panama City Beach, all of our lights worked most of the time because there was a Gulf Power truck riding around out here. And that has gone away. Now then, if you have a light go out, you call them and give them your pole number, and they give you 5 days, and they call a private contractor to come fix it within 5 days, and business days. Most people don't know they're waiting for somebody to call in. And whenever the policemen going through the neighborhoods, if they see a light out, if they could get a pole number and we could have somebody call in those once a week or every other day or so, we could light up our neighborhoods a little better with the lights that somebody's paying for. They just don't work. And you can ride in any neighborhood and see it out here now. And I know they needed to cut back and do some things, but that hurt the beach, I think.
I think we'll find that the city's paying for the lights.
A lot of them,
power.
and they're not working.
Right, the power anyway.
But little things like that, Drew, if we can help with things like that, I see they have little special events pop up outside of these clubs and things. They ought to have a permit. And the code enforcement people aren't out at night. Pull in and ask them where the permit is. If they don't have one, they ought not be there. And when I said some people seem to enjoy things I say a lot more than they should, I think, and they don't understand my weird sense of humor. Like when I told Turbo to write me a ticket. A minute. I wanted to bring it up here to the past council and see why he drove by 15 to come give me a ticket. And I showed most of them the mail yesterday. It wasn't anything personally. Turbo knew what I was doing. He knew exactly what I was doing.
Did you pay those tickets?
No, he didn't write one because he came up here to Mario and Mario called me to take your sign down. I said, write me a ticket. I want to come back up here to the board. And it wasn't to intimidate anybody, as some small-minded people may think, but it was strictly to get my point across. And I'm in a position now I can get it across better. We're going to clean this stuff up. We're going to get it all cleaned up, not just Mike or somebody else. Everybody's going to clean up. And when I said they'd tell you to go to hell, or I'd tell you to go to hell, it's because they're drinking. I wouldn't personally do that, but I think it's just dangerous for you to be put in that situation. You can't go down there and tell people what to do when they're having fun. That's a policeman's job. And I think that's what ought to happen. We've got plenty of work for y'all to do in the neighborhoods, I think. Anybody like to comment on any of this intelligent conversation? There was one, I think, that turned in a...
I would.
While he's coming up, John would...
I would.
John Ribbons.
Just a second, John. Let Miss Councilman Rickard.
I would hesitate to have the police officers on the beach dealing with the public, because I think that's as strong as I think the department is, and one-on-one as fine as the officers are, they are not public relations people at all.
You're on private property.
And to deal with the public, I don't think our officers, it's something they want to do. My personal experience of riding down Front Beach Road and saying hello and having 1 out of 50 of them respond, I don't want those people on the beach dealing with the people who pay our light bill. I don't think they're ready. I don't think they're bad people. One-on-one, they're fine. But I think collectively, they're not going to want to do that. They've made it clear what they do and don't want to do. And, I heard one complaining about giving directions to somebody who was visiting, that somebody thought he was a tom-tom. I don't think the current police department and the one-on-one attitude with visitors here, they should be on the beach dealing with a minor infraction.
The problem with going to work for the city is you don't get to pick and choose what you get to do. You have to get good at it.
Well, and I know I hope I'm not losing friends here, but I'm being, these two guys in here hung the moon as far as I'm concerned, the police officers. But I mean,
You're fixing to make him be ugly.
Well, that's fine, and he's got, and I know he's going to want to say something back, and I want to hear it. But I'm just saying that, I within the last 2 weeks have had a personal horrible experience with one of our police officers, and and it was, and I'm not. I'll just say that and we'll let it go. But I just don't think they're the people that ought to be down on the beach talking to the people who pay the light bills for this city and businesses and residents.
Duly noted.
Can I comment on that?
Huh?
Sir.
Okay.
Well, if this group thinks it ought to be the police officers, then it ought to be the police officers with a different attitude.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I think auxiliary officers are the perfect people to do that. People that are interested in helping clean up the beach and things that they pick that as something they'd like to do to try and help in that area. It's all about communication. And yeah, you might get that one bad apple every now and then. Doesn't have the best communication skills.
It's more than one. It's one, and I'm not talking apples. It's more than one officer that I've experienced personally with that attitude. And I think they should not be on the beach dealing with our visitors.
But that's something we need to deal with, or management needs to deal with, because if we've got that, we need to correct that. But in my experience in May, going to Lido Key, Siesta Key, I went to 3 of the keys on that area down between Clearwater and further south to Naples. That's who was on the beach. And I can tell you, I went to each beach, and when I went out to those beaches, the first thing that stood out to me was how everybody there's indoctrinated. They've got their, whether it's their umbrellas up or if they've set up a canopy or whatever, everybody I saw had a trash bag tied to their chairs, They didn't even have trash cans on the beach, with the exception of the exit of the beach. But everybody you saw had their trash bags. It's like they knew that's what they had to do. At 2 of the different locations I was at on 2 different days, within 15 minutes of somebody pulling out a glass bottle to start drinking a beer out of a glass bottle, there was an officer on each one of them, 2 different beaches. And within 15 minutes, whether they're somewhere with the binoculars or whatever, they were there very kindly telling them, you know, we can't have glass on the beach. I need you to pour that out.
Very
Please go and
kindly
take-
telling
very-
them.
Yeah.
Very
I was
kindly
within-
telling them.
I was from here to the wall and tell them, you know, hey, not only that, I need you to go ahead and take whatever glass bottles you have to your car because we don't allow the glass bottles on the beach. But it was very smooth. It wasn't a problem. I know the beach patrol that I've met on our beach that is on the four-wheelers, a couple of different 4 different officers that I've dealt with on the beach. I engage in conversation with them all the time when they come by.
One-on-one, yes.
Yeah, we talk about things. Now, I will tell you, my perception was that in the past, because we don't like to ruffle feathers of our visitors, we've kind of had more of a hands-off approach. But the people that I've met on the beach that usually patrol that beach, I think they'd be very good.
Well,
at
and
just
everybody,
letting people know.
it was
Yeah.
absolutely predictable that most people up here were gonna say, no, we love our cops. And I love, wait a minute, and then I'm gonna
Well,
say.
I think
and I'm gonna say-
you've
no,
heard
no,
my
no.
criticism before of different things, so I don't think I'm the typical person. You understand?
Well,
what
you're
I'm saying?
talking about a community that has more full-time residents going down on their beach and looking after their beach. We don't have that here. So 2 different communities when you're talking about those keys. All I'm saying is, I knew this would be unpopular what I'm saying, but I'm saying that to let them go down there, the current attitude, I think is a mistake. Now, everybody's gonna say, you know, I'm gonna pay for this here and I'm gonna pay for it out there too. And I mean, I can look
Not
down
with
the
me, John.
aisle
I
and see
think
who's
it's
gonna.
I think it's a
who's
great
gonna-
point. I mean, if it's a point that you're making because you've had an experience.
Has
And I think it's a valid
anyone
point.
else experienced that?
I have
I have.
not.
You have not.
I have. I've talked to Drew about it back a while back, but it's.
But
we're
once
gonna
again, I
have
think
that
we need to address
sometimes,
those
and
issues
I
because it's
still-
not right to have it. We've got to address those issues.
And I think Drew is addressing them. I think Drew understands that, and I've talked to him and Chad both about this very thing, and it, I believe, is being addressed. And
But that is why I do like auxiliary officers that maybe take that as a particular thing they'd like to do. Because maybe I think what happens with a lot of young officers is that's not where they want to be, is on the beach driving up and down.
But
wanna
they
be in
don't have
patrol
that
car on the street.
choice.
Yeah, I understand that, but
but that's just not, it typically has not worked here. Typically is what got us in this problem. So typically needs to go away, and let's fix it. And if it takes a couple of years of people doing things they don't want to do, that's what we got to do. It's what everybody's got to do. And I think that, because John's correct, they are our biggest ambassador. But they know that, and we've got to work on it.
And I think one thing.
My child asked me one time, I think I may have told y'all, he got sent home from school to write a paper when he was in the 7th grade about what somebody you know does for a living. And Brandon asked me, he said, do I write about the golf course or the arcade or the store, the donut shop? What do you do for a living? I said, I kiss people's hiney's. That's what we do in the tourist business. Police do it. City manager, everybody does it, and we make them happy, and we want them to be happy, and I think everybody's working on that. We need to look good and make them happy. John.
Thank you. For the record, my name is John Robbins, and I live at 2332 Foxworth Drive, Panama City, Florida. Before I start my remarks, I'd just like to say one thing. I think your police chief out here and a number of people that work for him have been very diligent in trying to find ways to train their people. As early as just 4 weeks ago, they had one of their officers in one of our customer service classes. And I'm telling you, there are some efforts being made to make us all better ambassadors. And I think you said it well, Mike, when you said that we are all ambassadors, and we are. And we got to remember that. I remember one time at the telephone company years ago being in a statewide meeting when a president of the company said, how many people here are in marketing? Most of us raised our hands. A few didn't. When he finished scolding those people, they understood that we were all in marketing. And every one of us in this room, we are important to each other and to this community as marketeers of what we have to offer. Now, I'm so happy you guys are having this workshop. I don't have words to express what it means to me personally. Because on January the 6th, 2012, I brought a letter after making several conversations, having several conversations with different people, both staff people as well as some elected people. I brought a letter to Richard Jackson. And I outlined in detail a situation that we were faced with over on 609 Gardenia. You guys have talked about it today. Most of you have been there, you recognize it. Actually, the property is across the street from 609 Gardenia. My wife and I we own 3 townhouses there. And when we first bought those, the property across the street was a beautiful home. It was very well landscaped, an older couple there were just the most pleasant people you've ever seen. They kept the yard up, it was gorgeous. Along come a situation when our properties out here became so valuable that we decided that we would sell a homestead. He got $1 million for that property. He sold it. There was going to be a really nice upscale condo built. I had a little bit of a heartburn over the fact that it was going to be a high rise in a neighborhood that had all single level homes. But recognizing that it could increase the value of our properties, because if these truly what they had said was going to be built would be built, then it would appreciate the value of everything around it. That didn't happen. They got the concrete poured in 2 locations, there in another location, close to the church, and the real estate bubble burst. And when it did, everything went. There was a period of time that we had a difficult time renting our townhouses. We don't do short-term leases, we do by the year. In order to lease our properties, we had to reduce the monthly rent that we were receiving back then. To this day, we're still getting almost $200 per month per unit. That's $600, 3 units, less than we were before that monstrosity went up over there. Because we can't keep it rented unless we cut the prices. Now, I gotta say to you that through the years, your staff has helped some.
Hold it, John, we've got a 3-minute rule out here,
Yeah.
and you
Is
have
that-
gone over, and I
Okay,
apologize.
all right, thank you.
Yes, sir, I
I'm
should have
looking forward
informed
to
you of
it
that
being-
before we
I'm
started.
looking forward to it being torn down.
Next.
Janice Hatcher.
I'm Janice Hatcher at 203 South Wells Street, and I want to thank you so much for this meeting. You don't know what this means to me. I think this is awesome. I wanted to tell Josie Strange, if you ever see a problem with a building site, write this name down, Josie. Reginald Bradley is with the DEP, and one phone call will make that person building that lot, their head will spin, and it'll all be over. So you don't have to call anybody but Reginald Bradley. Number 2 is I purchased a home in the county at Rosa Parks' house, and it had a hole in it, and I didn't tear it down because I just didn't tear it down. The county sent me a notice, a pink notice they put on my house. It will be torn down in 30 days with your permission or without your permission, and we will put a lien on your property. They did that to my house and the one next door. Guess what? They came down. We were going to build our house, but we were waiting until we built our house to tear down the existing structure. So basically, the county already puts that into effect. You can have that done like that. If there's a dilapidated building, it's deteriorating, it can't be rebuilt. Everybody knows that if it doesn't meet code, it has to be torn down. So you got to do it sooner or later. So put pressure on them to go ahead and do it now. That's legal. They do that in the county already. Let's see. Oh, dealing with the issue as far as the state and paying the taxes. We pay 12.5% taxes as people who rent the properties. If you suspect someone's not, you could call and ask if there's a permit or a license. If there's not, you call the state of Florida and they'll take care of the business for you. They'll gladly make them pay sales tax. And you won't have a big issue to do. If Denise has a property at so-and-so 203 South Wells Street, you see if there's a permit and there's not one with the city, all you gotta do is write down Janice Hatcher and call the state of Florida, and I can give you that number. And I'll guarantee you, the state of Florida will take care of business in within 30 minutes, because they want me to pay that tax. That's a resolution to that problem. The other issue I want to say is I want to thank Mel Leonard from the bottom of my heart, because all I have to do, he puts up with a lot of junk out of me, because if I see trash piled up in your yard sky high, or I see a sofa or whatever it may be, I take a picture of it, I send it to Mel Leonard, and I say 203 South whatever Street, sofa in road. Take the picture and I send it to Mel. And Mel says, I will have Mark, or I'll have Turbo, or whoever. He does, because he knows that's the big eyesore and that's the problem. We don't have to hire somebody to ride up and down in a truck and pay them $75,000 a year. We as citizens, if you guys set up an email and we've got a picture and a note like I send to Mel, and it can go straight into that email, he can see the problem immediately and that it's a violation. And he won't have to go out there. He can see with his own eyes, or whomever's looking at it. You can hire someone for what is minimum wage, $8 an hour, to sit at the computer and watch when these things come into the computer. And every person in this county who's diligent about seeing issues and things bother them when couches are piled up, they're going to take a picture and shoot it to that email, and then Sally can look at it and go, you know, this was trash, ... She can look it up. She's already got the address, and she can take care of it. And it doesn't take Turbo or anybody else out there, James, I'm sorry, anybody out there to look at it. That violation is already recorded in picture format and also in writing. So that's a quick way to resolve something. It doesn't cost any money to do that. And someone says, well, people can see who sent it in. I don't care if you know I sent it in. If you've got a couch with the guts piling out on the side of the road, I'll tell you. I don't have a problem with it. And I think, you know, if it's a violation, it's a violation. We've got to take care of these nasty issues and not let our city look run down like it is. So I think setting up the email where you've got the email and the picture, if you see a problem, snap it, send it to the email, and Turbo or whomever can see it immediately and address the problem. And I thank you. That's all I think I had to say. As far as when we were talking about the title, when you record something or you tear it down, you record that, a lien against the property, and it clouds the title. So that if I were to go and buy a property, I can see there's a lien, and it clouds that title. So when the title is pulled on that property for me to purchase it, I have to pay that lien off, and I have to make that my decision to buy that property. I've got to pay that lien off. So the addressing that, Ms. Riegert, is they have to pay sooner or later.
I know that.
And so, you know, and also you can take and put on there an interest, attach an interest or promissory note onto tearing that down. So that makes everybody move the way that they need to move, and not just procrastinate and make us all just sit there and look at it. It'd be a problem. Thank you so much.
You know, and on what Janice said, I just don't get people that are throwing their couches and mattresses out. I don't
They
get
do.
it. I just don't
Thank you,
get
ma'am.
it, you know? I mean,
Well,
I
let me
don't.
ask you this.
Thank you.
I don't think my beeper didn't go off, did it?
You were 11 seconds away.
Well, let me get my 11 seconds in. Who picks up that sofa, and how can we make that sofa go away as a problem? Does the homeowner have to pick up that sofa and pay for that sofa to be picked up when it's laying there and I called Mel and he says,
I'll
Don't-
answer you as soon as you get through.
okay, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
No. We don't have mandatory garbage.
No, but.
So all we have is limb control. They pick up yard debris and limbs and things. Nobody picks up the other unless somebody calls in, then they'll send somebody from the street department to pick up some trash. And it's the city spending money for somebody that's just throwing trash out by the road.
But don't you notify the homeowner if the couch is out in front of their house?
You notify them, but
If
they
it's
don't
them.
do anything.
Well, and if
Yeah.
it's them,
They
a
say
it's
lot
not
of times they
theirs.
dump it
Well, if
somewhere.
it's not theirs, they would call, wouldn't they? You know, I mean, if somebody put a sofa out in front of my house?
Well, sometimes they put it in the curb
Yeah.
where there's not anything. I mean, we got a problem with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's disgusting.
But that's how I've always griped about that problem. Who else?
Bobby Say?
For the record, Bobby C., 611 Poinsettia Court, VP, Emerald Beach Resort, HOA. I want to thank y'all a lot. Last 3 months, I've been wearing James out, and I've been getting a little frustrated, and this has helped me a lot to understand why he can't just go over and make something happen. I particularly thank John to kind of focus on the businesses, particularly around our neighborhood. And I guess that's true everywhere. But, you know, they make a living off of us. And for them to trash our neighborhood is it's just a hard thing to swallow. The other thing I want to mention is the unsecured construction sites, and I'm glad to hear that one of you rode and saw what was happening at Alvin's Island. And the metal that they're throwing out there, that's a safety problem. And these unsecured construction sites, that's a safety problem. So, you know, if you're setting priorities, I think you should look in that direction. That said, I have a question, and it might be a little bit off topic, but along the beach, and particularly in front of our resort, we have these sand fences. And they were put up 10 years ago. They did their job. They created dunes. But now they're half tore down. They're a tripping hazard. And we, Emerald Beach Resort, will be glad to pull them up. We're just waiting for somebody to tell us who's responsible for those. Who, you know, I've personally gone out there and repaired them.
Pull it up.
Sir?
Pull it up.
Pull
What
it up.
about, well, I mean, what about the DEP? What do you think, Janice?
The DEP will make you put an orange plastic around whenever you're building the site, or they'll make you put wood. But whenever that stops, they don't require, you pull it all up. When you finish your site and finish building, you're required to pull it all up and clean it around. But that orange plastic you see is required by the DEP, or you can do it in wood, or whichever way you want.
These are the sand,
The little picket fence
yeah,
type things.
that cause the dunes to form.
They really should have been pulled up whenever the house or the
Thank you.
was finished.
Okay, so just pull them up. All right, thank you a lot.
One more, sir. Tom Clumps. Oh, I didn't see that.
Tom Plum, 614 Poinsettia Court. Great, I love this all. Been complaining about the trash in neighborhoods for years and years. I think we need a marketing campaign to our citizens to get the word out there, to encourage them to do something about cleaning up. Maybe we can do neighborhood cleanups once a quarter or something like that, where the city will have a truck that goes around and picks up the bags when the citizens go out and clean up the roads.
All you have to do is ask Mr. Casto. He
Okay.
does that.
Okay. We've got city trucks going around all the time. They can be the eyes and ears. You mentioned the beach patrol. Wouldn't expect them to look for things like a beer bottle or something, but they're up and down those beaches. They can see the big things. You know, tent frames that lay along the side of the sand dunes for days and ends, fences falling down. This is all really unsightly stuff, and they can simply make a note of it. You know, there's a lot that everybody can do. I think that was a tremendous idea about having a place where people can email pictures of the problems. I think we just need to pull the community together and really let's clean up the town. Oh, one other thing. You've got meter readers that go around every 2 months to every house in town. They've got this thing that goes down there and they click a thing. Is there another key that they can click on there that puts a star after a person that's got construction going on, or a pound sign next to another one where their place looks crappy, and then it gets sent to Mel? This way he can cross-check as to what building permits are out there, and just an idea.
Want everybody involved, that's
Yeah.
right.
Take some pride in the community.
Next.
Bernie Thompson.
Bernie
Thompson, 8317 Front Beach Road. I understand why we're here, but I do have a few concerns. Sometimes it feels a little authoritarian, what I hear. And Councilman Solis, I'd like to ask you if there are any Fourth Amendment implications to binoculars. I've heard you mention binoculars a couple of times. Watching people on a beach, it sounds, quite frankly, more like a prison yard than a beach, like a watchtower, watching everybody. Is there probable cause required? Are there any Fourth Amendment implications to binoculars to people on the beach? I know the routine, so I'll move to you, Mayor Thomas. You own a diner that you advertise by the People's Gavel at every meeting with the Mike's Cup there. It's Mike's Bar and Oyster Cafe, I believe. And if we're going to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, will you commit to leadership by example? Will you start with your place? Because you once said that doing business in the right-of-way is illegal, and you have parking spots in the right-of-way that extend into the streets. And I believe you're missing a word on your sign. And I want to ask if you'll lead by example, and before anybody gets a ticket, I want to make sure that the politicians don't exempt themselves, that everybody has to follow the rules equally. Will you commit to that? And that's all I have.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mayor, a couple seconds.
Yes.
We forgot all about Drew.
No, it's all right.
No.
I just need a little bit of direction with Amy, but before I do that, I want to apologize to the councilman because that's a reflection on me, and I take the city very to heart. I like being an ambassador. I'm trying to change the culture over there, but that does not make an excuse for the men and women that behave inappropriately. I know I have some bad apples. I'm trying to fix that, but without complaints, I can't fix that. It's very hard to terminate someone in our city, special police officer, because they're covered under 112, the Bill of Rights for law enforcement officers. So I have to build a case. I was unaware that you or if anyone else has a problem, if they contact me personally, I can address it, but without it, I can't be everywhere. I try to get out as much as I can, and I'll get rid of the bad apples. That's my goal. I want this place to be where they're ambassadors, then law enforcement officers. So I apologize for that. It's a reflection on me. I'll take the blame for that. Now back to the direction. You guys were talking about Beach and Surf. Back in 1997, I believe it was, when you were on the council, Mayor, Beach and Surf was brought in by 3 agencies: TDC, Bay County, and Panama City Beach. The goal was to make them ambassadors, go down on the beach, be ambassadors, be friendly, warn them about our beach warning systems because the flags were just going up. Well, we did flags back in 91, but we were trying to use the flags more appropriately, so we wanted to have ambassadors down there. At the time, like I said, 3 agencies were going to fund it. TDC bailed on us, then the county bailed on us, and the city decided that we'll do it on our own because it's a good organization, great ambassadors. But the deal was, is when we wrote this in 97, and I'd have to have Amy and Marta look at this as if this is the way you want to go. No enforcement whatsoever, law enforcement or civilian or civil citation. So if you do want them to enforce civil infractions down there, we're going to have to give them power, and by doing that, we'd have to create an ordinance. But that's totally up to you. Beach and Surf do a great job. I'm proud of all of them down there. They do go down there. They don't enforce it, but they keep track of the beach services for me. They tell them what they're doing wrong, and if they keep on doing it wrong, they call myself or the patrol officers, or they call James Chandler or Mark, and we fix the problem. But they have absolutely no power because that's the way we designed it. We didn't want them going down there with a heavy hand. They're ambassadors. So if that's the direction that the majority of you want us to do, that's not a problem. We'll do that. As far as law enforcement on the beach, that's something I've been trying to do the last 2 years. Last year, the old council and 2 of you still sitting up here, you gave me in my budget to bring some of the SUVs online where I could get officers on the beach. Before, we never did that, except a couple of supervisors in trucks. The problem with not being on the SUVs, it's hard to get an officer down there for 15, 20 minutes and get a hot call and run back up to get to their car. We always focus on the top side, but the last couple of years I'm trying to get back on the beach. I understand what you're saying. When there's a group and I got an officer with an attitude, totally unacceptable. I wouldn't want them down there either because we do need those people down there. They're down there having a good time, but we do have to enforce laws. That's why we worked with the last council to change a lot of those arrestable offenses because I didn't want to go down there and arrest someone for having a dog on the beach. We moved it to a civil infraction, the same thing with the glass. But the officer, if the person keeps on escalating, they can arrest them for that. But we did move it to civil, so the officers can write that. So basically, long conversation. My question is, if you want Beach and Surf to do any kind of enforcement, I'm sure we're going to have to write a new ordinance on that. And then answer your question about TDC funding. They funded us as ambassadors. Once we went to law enforcement mode, we had to come off their clock and go back on the city's clock for enforcement.
Now, there are the new laws coming out, and I think there's like $600,000 in area. I think they're already giving up $200,000 to $300,000 for public safety and lifeguards.
Right.
And we're not the only agency trying to get the money. I know Bay County Sheriff's Office is trying to get it because they're entitled to it as well. But that's something we have to go through council and TDC to see what we can and how we can fund it.
I personally never meant for Beach and Surf to be writing tickets. I meant for the policemen to.
No,
I think they get in trouble. They get the same attitude that our code enforcement people get. I think it needs to be an officer doing that.
Well, I agree, but there was a couple council members that said let
Okay.
Beach and Surf enforce, if that's the route you want, we're
Sure.
gonna have to change our ordinance, but that's totally up to you.
Sure.
But they can
I'll-
always radio, like you
They
said.
do.
Yeah.
Carol and I'm doing
But I want you to understand, there is a problem.
There is a problem.
And everybody in the city, the water people, when they're reading, everybody needs to get involved in this to straighten it up.
And by the direction of the city manager, we've been taking photographs and we've been forwarding Turbo. We just started that the past weekend because we are slowing down a little bit because some of the schools have already started in the southern region. So now we have time if we see some violations. We're taking photographs on the weekends and everything. And if it's a fine, Turbo can handle
Sure.
that when he comes back in. So that's something we're working on.
But they're not out there on the weekend. And
I
things that you can help with, I know your officers don't want to do it, but there's a lot of things we don't want to
I agree
do.
with
Let's all pitch in and get it done.
Yes, sir.
And I
A
don't
couple
know-
of years, we'll all be prouder than we are
I
today.
understand that. I'm here to
And I
make the
don't-
big picture better.
I don't know anything about policing except what you've taught me, and so I appreciate that.
It's
But,
unacceptable, and-
would having these officers get out of their cars and actually talking to people rather than sitting in the car staring at their computer, would having them park somewhere? I saw it done in Charlotte. They park right here, and the two officers walk around the block, talk to people, and if they need their car, it's right here. And if they, then they get back to their car, they move to another block, and they walk around, and people see them, and they're visible, and they're out of the car, and they're, hello, how are you? Now that's where we get in trouble.
That's where I got my start from because I got out and I got to know all the owners of the restaurants, the motels, and I encourage that. But sometimes when you see them sitting there, they're doing reports because they're
I'm
back to
sure.
10 or 15. But we try to get them out, and I do have some bad apples that don't want to get in their car. But on the other hand, I do have an officer that one guy actually called him and complimented him the other day. His name's Officer Chavera. He was out talking to people, and one of the individuals, he said, "Hello, I hope you have a good day," told him to F off. Law enforcement's got a black eye right now in the national media. But there are some good officers, and the guy just said, "Okay, have a good day." And another thing, not to bring everything up, but sometimes when you catch an officer, it's not an excuse, but some people are not meant to be police officers. And after a toll of about 3 years, when you've been to suicides, babies dying in your arms, pulling people out of the surf that are lifeless, it takes a toll on them. And they deal with the worst percent of the population out there, and they quit. And I got some bad apples I need to get rid of, and I apologize for that.
And I was not saying bad apples. I was just saying I didn't think that they were the ambassadors to be on the beach dealing with our guests.
There's a few of them out there, but we have a lot of good young men and women out there that are doing an outstanding job for us. And there are some people I'd like to get rid of, but without the complaints, I can't do that. I can't
Protect
get-
and serve, to me, part of serve is being friendly to people out there and letting us know that it's okay. It's like, this guy's friendly, he's okay.
The better we look, the better class clientele
That's why I
we'll
said
get.
officers in
Everything will
schools
be
that
better.
talk to kids and everything else, we try to do that.
And there's
I'm
nobody
gonna
here who
ask about
doesn't
it.
respect our police department and hurt for what the police departments around the country have gone for. I want you to know that.
But if you have a problem with one of my officers, and that goes to anyone in the public, let
And
me
I
know
don't,
as a
but I
officer.
don't want to do that as a city
But I can't do
councilman.
anything about
And
it.
he didn't know I was a city councilman.
It doesn't make a difference if you're a city councilor or
But,
not.
and
If
and
you're
I didn't want
public-
to, I didn't want to do that as a city councilman, and none of us want to do that, because that's not what we want to do, right?
But I need to know what's going on so I can take care of it. That's all I ask from anybody. But I
Thank you.
apologize because it's
Not
a
at
reflection
all.
of me and my leadership, so I apologize.
Thank you, sir.
There was a question asked of me about, not you,
Okay.
question asking me about if I would be the first to follow the rules. I am following the rules. One of the horrible things about business is I'm grandfathered in. And I am following the rules that were in place in 1986 when I built my place. How people park, I can't help. Trucks now have 4 doors instead of 2. They stick out in the road if somebody chooses to park on the side. Legally, you can use marked right away. You can't use it to build, but you can use it if it's marked there on the side. It's legal. Is it a bad rule? It may be, but I'm grandfathered. I rode around with Mel yesterday showing him that same thing. I said, by us allowing some of these businesses to open the last few years, we're in essence, grandfathering them and creating the problem to keep going. And I think Mel will tell you that's what I told him. I think it's wrong. I just bought a lot next to my donut shop up there because I know I'm fixing to rebuild in the next 2 or 3 years. That building's old and falling apart. I was going to have more parking to build, and I took care of that. If I had to do it right here, I'd do it, but I don't. I'm legal. I know that stinks to some people, but it's the law.
Can I answer my question?
Sure.
I'd like to refer to Drew, basically, on the beach, is it uncommon that people might use binoculars to see if somebody's committing an infraction on the beach?
You can use binoculars in a public place. They even put them on a lot of the piers throughout the world where people can put a quarter in there and watch people on the beach. It's sightseeing. If you're peering at
So
someone's
as long
house,
as you're not going into somebody's house.
correct. There's no expectation of
Okay.
privacy on the beach.
Yeah.
But if you're staring at someone inside their house, and you're violating some rules. But there's binoculars all over the place on piers where you can put a quarter and watch the girls or the guys walking on the beach.
So I guess my answer to somebody that's coming to the beach that's afraid that somebody might be looking at them because they want to violate a rule or a regulation is I would ask you to come respect our beaches. Come to the beaches, respect our beaches, and if you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't have anything to worry about.
John made a statement earlier talking about everybody here is an ambassador. The problem is some people try to tear down the beach and find things wrong with it rather than finding the many things right that we've got going. Life is good. It's a wonderful place.
I was just going to say.
Name and address for the record.
Lee J. Kenner, 230 South Glades Trail. I have known for a fact there's quite a few newscasters that use binoculars. And there's several people in the garbage business, in the construction business that use binoculars all day long, every day. Thank you.
My question was about.
Question here. Yes. Question?
Yeah, Mario, I have one for you, right quick. On the, some of the businesses on Front Beach Road, I mean, basically the ordinance says palm trees, you know, we were talking about putting the ice machines, removing those. Right. A lot of those businesses have their floats and stuff like that out there. Can we do something, you know, give them a size limit? You know, I don't know, 8 by 18 or is there something we
can do anything
right.
this group wants to do.
But what I'm talking about, I mean, it'd be easier for the guys to go down there and, you know, they can, if they have to measure it, they get a phone call, they can go measure it. I mean, that's part of their advertisement there and part of their storage out there. And
That's the point I was trying to make, was that we've got to give them that clear direction.
Right.
Because based on the way the land development code's written right now, all that is a violation.
Right.
So we need to make sure that we've got it to where if we're gonna, and that's what we have to decide, if we're gonna allow some of those things to be exceptions to that. You know, reasonable things that would be reasonable for business. It's the
I
people
think we
that-
should. I think we should.
I would
talk
make
about
a
that.
recommendation, and I know we can't do anything at a workshop. There's a lot of things that we need to know about. And y'all need to come up with some rules to enforce some things. I would like to see y'all get in these neighborhoods and clean them up and bring us recommendations of things to fix these problems along Front Beach Road rather than us knee-jerking on some rules that may not need to be enforced when some of these things you can clearly see are problems. Right around the neighborhood. I showed Mel yesterday enough to keep them busy for a while. In 20 minutes.
In one neighborhood.
No, in mine, in yours.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you can't ride to your neighborhood without seeing these things. In the county, they've got it. You can have one derelict vehicle. Why should you be able to have one derelict vehicle? But the city has rules that are just as archaic. But we've got a lot we can fix up. I'd like to someday hear the reason that guy's talking about 3 or 4 months of this one thing. If we've been working on it for 3 or 4 months, what are we doing wrong rule-wise that you can't fix it in that length of time? That is crazy. I mean, we're doing a horrible job up here and rule making if we can't do better than that. And I had rather, it's at the end of the summer, there's plenty to do. Let's leave the float stuff. Let's leave all that alone till we have some rules that we are comfortable with enforcing. And let's get in the areas where we've got some real problems for our residents and fix them. And then you bring us rules that you suggest, get with the business community about how much a percentage of the front.
Right.
Or whatever you were talking about, ice machines and things. We need to know exactly what we're doing before we send people out. And then next month we change it. We're not gonna change what we're doing in the neighborhoods. We want them clean. Let's get them clean. Don't y'all, is that,
I'm all right.
John? Direction? Okay. Yes.
So
Name
you
and
have
address.
one more.
Okay. How you doing?
I want to talk about what you were just talking about. I'm Jay Quaid. I own Gulf Coast Panama Jack. I'm a whole distributor.
Need an address, Jay.
And my address, business address is 1411 Moreland Road.
Thank you.
And home address 5214 Finisterre Drive. But anyway, I'm a wholesaler distributor. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I sell floats, boogie boards, beach chairs, umbrellas, suntan oil. Been doing it for 30 years here. Yeah, I know y'all talking about getting rid of the displays on the sidewalks and so forth. They did that in Walton County this past year, and my rep called me. He asked me to come here because he had some of our retail stores were concerned about it, and so that's why I came here. But he said that when they did that in Walton County this past year, the sales for those type of items plummeted in those stores, and he said sales dropped big time. Okaloosa County still allows it. Sonny has a store over there in Destin. You can pretty much do it in every county between here and Biloxi, and we also sell throughout the whole state of Florida. St. Simon's Island down to Fort Myers Beach, they allow it in all those places. So and maybe it does need to be cleaned up. I've got some. We did some stuff in St. Simon's Island, the Winn-Dixie there. I've got some pictures of some plastic type displays that we did because they wanted something a little nicer there. And you know, you open them up during the daytime, and at nighttime you close them up, and it doesn't look like anything's even there. So maybe, you know, I'd be willing to, you know, offer you guys some suggestions on what to do with that, and instead of just getting rid of it altogether. So that's yeah, like I said, I had my rep email me some pictures, but it's just yeah, like the Ed Hickey old saying, unseen, untold's unsold. If they don't know you, if they don't know you have it, they're not going to stop and buy it. You know, because I see people, and I spent $40,000 on those displays last year because I supply Winn-Dixie, Dollar General, Walgreens, all these stores. You know, I'm the one that builds those displays, pay for them, and you know, if you go say, hey, they're not here anymore. I just lost $40,000 worth of displays too. So so I'd just like for y'all to think about that before you just, like say, do a knee-jerk reaction, say, hey, get rid of them all, because we'd be the only ones besides Walton County. I mean, I don't even know in Fort Myers Beach they allow it, Daytona Beach Shores, Jacksonville, you know, all these other places, St. Simon's, you know, other nice resort towns allow it. But you know, I think it's a good idea to put some type of, like you were saying, put some type of size limit on it, or even the type of the display. And I'd be happy to email you some pictures of some suggestions too. So
Thank you, Jay. And the problem is, it's a law already, and it hadn't been being enforced. And when some of us up here were giving code enforcement and the city manager direction to enforce the codes, this was the easy one to find. And there are a lot of rules that are on there that may need to come out.
Yes.
I mean, because we don't need any rules that we're not going to enforce. And this may be some of those that need changing, but I think everybody's got a direction, and I think the main thing this did, hopefully our building department, I know you can't tear down dilapidated buildings, but they ought to be doing that. They ought. I'm surprised they weren't here today, because some of this stuff comes under construction, and when we give COs to businesses that aren't complying to all our rules, that's wrong. And that when we give them that CO, then we've in effect grandfathered them, and we're stuck with something else that is a problem. We create, every year we create more of the same stuff, and that's got to stop. This meeting's adjourned.
Hey, Paul, did you get the email that I sent you?